Dear brothers and sisters, today I want to bring awareness to something that silently affects our lives' habits. Not the harmful ones we all know, but the innocent ones, the ones that seem harmless, or even normal, yet, day by day, they slowly erode your clarity, your strength and your peace. So let's reflect together. Here are 4 innocent habits that may actually be destroying you from the inside out. Every time you say yes to something outside of you that you do not truly mean, you are saying no to something inside of you that quietly needed your protection. The world does not stop asking, it will keep pulling at your attention, your energy, your time. And if you do not have the clarity and courage to say no, the world will happily consume every part of you that was meant to be reserved for your growth. At first it seems harmless. Someone asks for help, and you agree even though your body says rest. Someone invites you somewhere, and you accept even though your spirit says stay still. Someone offers a task and you say yes even though your heart whispers, this is not for you. And it feels kind, it feels generous, it feels like you are doing the right thing. But over time, this begins to weigh heavy, not on the surface but in your inner space, the space where your clarity lives. When you always say yes to the world, you begin to forget how to listen to yourself. You begin to ignore the quiet signals. The body gives you the ones that say, I am tired, I am drained, I am losing direction. And then you start to wonder why you feel overwhelmed, why your days feel full, but not fulfilling, why your energy is low, even when your sleep is long. The answer is not always in what you are doing, but in what you are agreeing to do, even when it does not align with your truth. The brain loves to please, it loves to be accepted. It fears rejection because rejection feels like danger. So it says say yes and you will be loved. Say yes and you will belong. But this is a trick of the old brain, the part that forgets you are not here to be liked by everyone. You are here to live in harmony with your purpose, and not every yes serves that purpose. Some yes answers are beautiful and generous, and in alignment, and others are only masks we wear to keep the peace outside while creating conflict inside. There is nothing selfish about saying no when your inner balance depends on it. There is nothing unkind about protecting your energy when you are being pulled too thin. Boundaries are not walls, they are bridges between two truths, yours and the world's. When you can say no with peace and kindness, you are honoring both. You are saying I see you, but I also see myself and I cannot abandon me for you. This time, when you say yes out of guilt or fear or pressure, you are not really saying yes. You are saying I will betray myself, so you will not feel disappointed. And this creates a wound, a deep invisible wound that grows each time you ignore your own needs. Not because the other person is wrong, but because you did not listen to your own truth. This is the beginning of burnout, not just physical but spiritual. When you give what was never yours to give in the first place, to live with strength and clarity, you must understand the value of your yes. It must come from a place of fullness, not obligation, from awareness, not autopilot, from love, not fear. When you say yes to everyone, you are like a candle burning at both ends, trying to light every corner of the world, but slowly running out of your own fire. And when the flame goes out, no one can be warmed, not even you. You do not need to explain your no. When it comes from inner truth, silence can be enough, not because you are avoiding, but because your energy is sacred and does not need to be defended. Every time you choose yourself with respect, you teach others how to treat you, and more importantly, you remind yourself that your voice matters. And this remembering builds power, not the loud kind, not the controlling kind, but the calm kind that stands rooted and unshaken. Every no that comes from love is a yes to your own well-being, to your own direction, to your own peace. And as you build the courage to say no, you begin to create space. And in that space new strength grows, strength to focus, strength to reflect, strength to serve from a place of overflow, not depletion. Then when you do say yes, it will be a powerful yes, one that comes with your full attention and your full presence. If you want to live a life that is aligned with your values, your direction, your inner balance, you must become comfortable with discomfort. The discomfort of someone's disappointment, the discomfort of being misunderstood, the discomfort of sitting in silence after saying no. This is the training ground for a disciplined mind and a compassionate heart. You do not need to harden. You need to stand gently but firmly in your own truth. It is not the number of tasks you complete that brings peace, but the clarity with which you choose them. The monk who walks the path with purpose does not rush to every calling. He listens deeply and moves with intention. His power is not in how much he carries, but in how wisely he chooses what to carry. When you live this way, your days become quieter, your thoughts become clearer, your energy returns not because the world changed, but because your response to it became more conscious. Saying no is not rejection, it is redirection. When you say no to the things that drain you, you say yes to the practices that renew you. You say yes to rest, to silence, to stillness, to movement that strengthens, instead of depletes. And this is how you begin to rebuild a foundation that holds firm in chaos, a center that does not collapse under pressure. Your time is sacred, your energy is sacred, your attention is sacred. Treat it like something precious, not because you are better, but because you are responsible. When you give yourself fully to what truly matters, your presence becomes a gift, and people will feel it. They may not always understand your no, but they will respect the strength behind it. So do not fear the moment of pause, when the yes wants to rise from your lips. Take a breath, return to yourself, ask, is this true? Is this needed? Is this aligned? And let your answer come from stillness, not from pressure. Let it come from a place where your spirit feels light, not heavy, and in that place, let your voice rise clearly. And if it is a no, let it be a peaceful no, without guilt, without anger, without explanation, just truth. And in that simple act, you take back your power, one breath at a time, one choice at a time, one moment of honesty at a time, until saying yes becomes a conscious offering, and saying no becomes a sacred boundary, and both become acts of love. And this is enough. The mind is a powerful tool, but it is also a restless one. When left without guidance, it begins to spin and twist, and magnify the smallest of things into heavy weights. We were never meant to carry something small happens, and instead of letting it pass, the mind grabs, it holds it, turns it, over again and again, until what was once a passing thought becomes a storm. And the more you feed it, the louder it becomes, until it feels like reality. But it is not reality, it is just thought repeated, often enough, that you begin to believe it. This is the danger of overthinking, not that it is dramatic or loud, but that it is subtle. It wears a disguise. It pretends to be analysis. It pretends to be preparation, but it is really a form of fear, a fear of being wrong, a fear of missing out, a fear of regret. And when you allow this fear to sit in the driver's seat, every decision becomes a burden, even the smallest ones, because the mind will create 1,000 outcomes, and try to prepare for all of them. But life does not wait for overthinkers. It moves, and you must learn to move with it. Not around it, not behind it, but with it. Every time you hesitate, every time you replay, every time you seek the perfect answer, the moment passes, and the opportunity fades. And you may still be thinking, but you are not living, you are not choosing, you are not learning, because growth comes from movement, not from perfection. You cannot think your way into clarity, you must act your way into it. But overthinking keeps you trapped in your head, and away from your path. And if you are not careful, it becomes your habit, and eventually your identity. The one who overthinks believes they are being careful, but what they are really doing is avoiding risk, and risk is necessary for growth. You do not become strong by staying safe, you become strong by trying, by stumbling, by adjusting and continuing. But when the mind demands certainty before movement, it paralyzes the soul. It says wait, wait until you know, wait until you're sure, wait until everything feels right. But that moment never comes, because the mind will always find another possibility to worry about. And this is why you must begin to train a new pattern, not to destroy thought, but to observe it, and release it, like a cloud passing in the sky, like a wave returning to the ocean. When a small problem arises, do not magnify it, do not give it life, simply notice it, acknowledge it, and let it pass. Most problems are not solved by thinking harder, they are solved by simplifying your response, by doing the next clear thing, by returning to what is real, what is in front of you. Now, the monk does not carry what is unnecessary. He does not rehearse conversations that have not happened. He does not rewrite the past. He does not invent stories about what others might think. He walks in the present, because he knows the present is the only ground that is stable. Everything else is illusion. And when you live in illusion, you lose your strength. You lose your peace, because you are chasing shadows, instead of standing in the light. This is not to say you should not think, it is to say, you should not overthink. Thinking is a tool, a sacred one when used with intention, but when thinking turns into looping, when reflection turns into obsession, when preparation turns into paralysis, then the tool has turned into a chain, and it is time to cut it gently, and return to the breath, return to the body, return to the task in front of you, because that is where your life is, not in the thought, but in the doing. One of the ways to trick the brain into doing hard things is to stop giving the mind too much power over small things. If you treat every small decision like a great burden, the mind will believe it is, and soon everything becomes heavy and overwhelming, and you wonder why you feel tired, why you feel behind. It is because you are carrying the weight of 1,000 imagined outcomes, when all you needed was one action, one step, one breath. When you notice the mind starting to spin, pause. Do not feed it, do not argue with it, do not follow it. Simply notice this. Is thought not truth? This is imagination, not reality. Then gently bring yourself back to the body. Feel your feet on the ground. Feel the breath in your chest. Look at your hands. Look at the task before you, and act, even if it is small. Action ends overthinking. It cuts the loop, and reminds the brain, I do not need to live in fear. I can move and adjust. I can trust and try. Overthinking thrives in stillness without awareness. It feeds on untrained time. So structure your day, give your attention a home, create rituals that return you to the present. Move your body, often breathe with awareness. Often do hard things not to suffer, but to sharpen. The mind needs challenge, or it creates false ones. And when you choose your challenge, the mind becomes your ally. But if you give it nothing to work with, it will turn against you and build mountains out of dust. You must also learn to forgive the past and release the future. The more you replay what has already ended, the more power you give to ghosts. The more you imagine what has not yet come, the more you weaken your roots, and you begin to live in places that do not exist. The mind loves those places because they are endless, but your spirit cannot grow there. It grows only here. So you must train the mind to return again and again to now. And that is a practice, not a punishment. Let your thoughts come and go. Do not grab them. Do not fight them. Watch them and stay grounded. This is the way of the monk. Not silence of thought, but silence within thought. The storm can still blow, but you are the mountain beneath it. This is strength, not control. Not force, but stillness that does not collapse in the face of noise. When the thought says, what if, you say, even if. When it says maybe, later you say, I begin now. When it says not ready, you say, I will grow by doing. Every moment you choose presence over panic, you are rewiring the mind. Every breath you stay instead of escape, you are planting strength. And every time you act instead of overthink, you are reclaiming your path. Not because you figured it all out, but because you decided to walk, and that walking becomes your way. So do not wait for the perfect time. Do not wait for the thought to stop before you act. Let the thought be, and act anyway. Let the doubt be, and move anyway. Let the noise be, and stay anyway. And you will find something deeper than thought, something steady, something clear. And that is where the real power begins. The search for comfort begins. So quietly, it does not arrive with noise. It arrives with ease, with warmth, with softness, that whispers, you deserve this, you have worked enough, you can rest. Now you can avoid this one thing, just for today, just for a moment. And so you sit a little longer, you move a little less, you delay the task that demands energy, and you reach for what feels good, what feels safe, what requires nothing from you. And at first it feels like a relief, it feels like kindness. But what begins as recovery soon becomes routine, and the routine becomes resistance, and the resistance becomes your reality. Comfort is not the enemy, but attachment to it is when the body no longer seeks challenge, when the mind avoids effort, when the spirit loses its fire. It is not because something is broken, it is because something is being fed, that was meant to be tamed. The desire to stay soft, to stay untouched, to avoid discomfort, is ancient. It is rooted in survival. But your purpose is not to survive, it is to awaken, it is to rise through the fire, not hide from it. It is to meet resistance, and walk through it, not around it. And this is the truth. The mind will always choose the easier path, unless you train it otherwise. To trick the brain into doing hard things, you must reverse the signal. You must begin to associate growth with reward and comfort, with stagnation. When the brain sees comfort as the goal, it will always run from pain. But when the brain sees discomfort as the path to expansion, it begins to shift. It begins to help you, not hold you back. This training is slow and silent. It happens when you get up early, even though sleep calls louder. It happens when you push your body, even though it trembles. It happens when you choose silence over distraction, again and again and again. Every small decision is a vote, either for your strength or for your softness. And the softness is not peace, it is avoidance. The softness is not healing, it is hiding. Healing is not comfortable. Growth is not comfortable. Clarity is not comfortable. The warrior does not rise from ease. The monk does not awaken by avoiding the inner work. The path of discipline is paved with discomfort, not because pain is noble, but because the fire burns away what is false and leaves behind what is real. The reason hard things feel impossible is because you have forgotten how to suffer on purpose. Not to hurt, but to sharpen. Not to break, but to stretch. Discomfort is the doorway to resilience. And once you step through that door, often enough, the body adapts, the mind adapts, the fear begins to fade. Not because it disappears, but because you have learned it is not in control anymore. Comfort kept you alive, but discipline will help you live. There is a lie, the comfort sells, and that lie is that hard things can wait, that you will be stronger tomorrow, that the mood will shift, that one more hour of ease will help you get ready. But readiness is not a feeling, it is a decision. And when you wait for the perfect moment, it will never arrive. When you wait for motivation, it will never stay. Discipline is the structure you build when everything inside you wants to stay soft, and you choose to move anyway. And that is power. The brain loves patterns. It follows what you repeat. If you wake up and reach for distraction, the brain learns that discomfort is unsafe. If you always stop when things get hard, the brain learns that quitting is protection. But if you begin the day with action, if you move through resistance, even when it aches, the brain begins to believe something new. It begins to say we do hard things, not because we must, but because we can, because that is who we are. You do not need to conquer everything at once. You need to conquer this moment. You need to win this breath, this choice, this hour, and then do it again and again, until the discomfort becomes familiar, until the resistance becomes expected, until the fear becomes quiet. You are not training to become perfect. You are training to become unshaken, to become stable, to become rooted in action, not emotion, in discipline, not mood. Comfort often disguises itself as peace, but peace is earned through discipline, not through retreat. The peaceful mind is not the one that avoids the storm, it is the one that trains in the rain, the one that walks anyway, the one that says this path is steep, but I walk because I must, because this is the only way to reach the summit, the only way to reach the deeper self that waits beyond the soft illusion of easy. When you face the hard thing, you will feel the pull to run, the urge to delay, the voice that says, maybe not now, maybe never. Listen, but do not follow. Acknowledge, but do not obey. Feel the fear but move through it, like wind through trees. Let it pass, let it speak, and stay on the path. This is how the monk trains, not by fighting the desire for comfort, but by watching it, and not choosing it over truth. You are not here to be numb. You are not here to be entertained. You are here to become whole, and wholeness is not found in ease. It is found in effort, in clarity, in the steady breath of one who has chosen the way of fire, not for pain but for purification. The one who can sit in discomfort without escaping it. The one who can rise while the world still sleeps, not for praise, but for practice. When the brain says stop, remind it that you are safe. When the body says rest, remind it that you are building, not destroying. When the heart says I cannot, remind it that you already have, and will again. You are not at war with yourself. You are in training. You are building the habit of doing what is hard, so that one day it no longer feels hard. It just feels like the way. So wake up and move, eat clean, and with intention. Train the body not for appearance, but for strength. Keep promises to yourself, not because they are big, but because they are yours. Sit with the hard thing, not because you enjoy it, but because you know it leads you somewhere better. And every day choose what strengthens over what softens. Choose what sharpens over what soothes. Choose what builds over what distracts, and over time, the path becomes clearer. Not because the world changes, but because you have changed. Because you have trained your brain to stop running from the fire, and to start walking through it with eyes open, heart steady, and feet grounded in the truth that the hard way is the real way, and the real way is the only way worth walking. There is a deep wisdom in simplicity, but it often hides in plain sight. The brain wants to chase complexity. It wants to make everything a grand process. It wants the perfect timing, the flawless plan, the right conditions before it begins. But the truth is, those things are illusions, created by fear. Waiting for the right mood, the right motivation, the right moment becomes a lifelong pause. And in that pause, life continues without you. The day passes, the task remains, the promise you made to yourself waits in silence. And the longer you wait, the heavier it feels. Not because the task grew, but because hesitation adds weight that discipline was meant to carry. You do not need to feel ready to begin. You do not need to feel motivated to move. You only need to take one small action. That's it. A breath, a movement, a step, not a mountain. Climb just the first stone on the path. And what happens when you act is that you interrupt the cycle, the loop, the spiral of excuses, and waiting, and fear. The brain begins to shift from retreat to forward momentum. It says, we are doing this, and doing changes everything. Thinking cannot. Consistent action is the path. It is not about inspiration, it is about rhythm. The mind loves rhythm. It responds to it. It adapts to it, even if it resists at first. When you make your life a practice, instead of a performance, you remove the pressure to be perfect, and replace it with the power of repetition. What you do daily becomes who you are not. What you do when you feel inspired. What you do when no one watches, that is your real path. And when that path is walked with awareness, it becomes sacred. To trick the brain into doing hard things, you must stop negotiating with feelings, and start trusting patterns. Feelings rise and fall. They are wind through branches. Some days soft, some days harsh. But patterns are like roots. They hold you steady. You wake, you breathe, you move. Not because today feels special, but because this is the life you have chosen. This is the direction you are walking. And when you walk it long enough, even the resistance fades into the rhythm. And what was once hard becomes normal. What was once unfamiliar becomes home. Think of the monk rising before the sun, not because he feels joy at every step, but because he knows the practice shapes the spirit. The body may be tired, the mind may resist, but the practice continues. The bowl is filled, the steps are walked, the silence is honored, and over time, that repetition becomes freedom. Not a cage but a gate, into presence, into mastery, into peace. The mind is not controlled by force, but by discipline. And discipline is a gift to the self, not a punishment. It is easy to want the result, but avoid the process. Easy to imagine the strength, but resist the effort. Easy to desire the peace, but not sit in the silence. But the only way is through the way, through the early rise, through the repeated task, through the sweat, the stillness, the quiet victories that no one sees, except you. And that is enough. You are enough to witness your own growth, to feel your own becoming, to live your own truth. The brain will protest. It will say, what's the point? It will say it doesn't matter. It will say, try again tomorrow. But the moment you act, that voice begins to lose its grip. Action rewrites the story. You are telling yourself every time you show up for the work, you become the person who shows up. Every time you do the task, you become the person who finishes what they begin. And identity is not found. It is built through repetition, through presence, through steady breath and movement. Discipline begins when you no longer ask yourself how you feel about the work, and just begin the work. No inner debate, no mental courtroom, just a quiet action, and then another, and another. You brush your teeth, you tie your shoes, you breathe deep, and you begin, even if it's 5 minutes, even if it's one movement, even if it's just a stretch on the mat. The point is not the size of the action. The point is that you became the kind of person who acts. The brain follows what you do, not what you say. It listens to repetition, not promises. It rewires itself not with intention, but with direction. You show it what matters through what you repeat. And when you repeat discipline, you become discipline. When you repeat presence, you become presence. When you repeat strength, you become strong. And it does not matter if you miss a day. What matters is you return. The monk does not count perfection, he counts return. How many times can I return to the practice? How many times can I return to the mat, the breath, the movement, the moment? Not because I am forced, but because I remember. This is who I am now. This is the path I have chosen. This is the place where my power lives. Not in the feeling, but in the doing. Not in the dream, but in the discipline. The longer you live in action, the quieter the noise becomes. Not because the world changed, but because you changed. You no longer wait for the mind to approve you. Simply begin, and the mind adapts. It sees the new rhythm, it feels the new pattern, and it follows. That is the power of action. It trains the brain. It teaches it that we do not rise when we feel like it. We rise because that is our way, and the way becomes the truth. So choose one thing, and do it daily. Not for the result, but for the rhythm. Make your life a ritual, not a reaction. Wake with purpose, breathe with presence, move with clarity, eat with gratitude, rest with stillness, and keep the circle turning. Not because every moment feels inspired, but because you are building something sacred with your hands, your feet, your breath, and your time. And when the world distracts, return. When the mind resists, return. When the body aches, return. Because that return is the real practice. That return is the real discipline. That return is the real transformation. The rest is just a shadow of it. The mind will always try to pull you away, but the moment you take one action, you return, and that return is everything.